Hi. So every time it seems like things can't get worse in American politics and American society, they do. And now we have the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which is just a catastrophe for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's a catastrophe because political violence is simply wrong, period. It doesn't matter who it's against. It's very, very dangerous for this to be kind of re-injected into American politics. So that's the most important thing. No matter how one feels about Donald Trump, it's just appalling that someone tried to murder him. Secondly, it's a disaster because this will help Trump, I think, who was already clearly ahead, maybe even heading towards a landslide victory, and now defeating him will be that much harder. And thirdly, because I think everything we know about Donald Trump and the entire Republican Party at this point suggests that they will use this as an excuse for further authoritarian crackdowns on their enemies. And so it's really, I think, important to kind of be clear about the political environment in which this actually took place, right? That this is not a political environment in which the two parties have equal relationships to the question of violence and the question of conspiracy theories, right? So Joe Biden, responded to this as any decent politician would. He said, "There's no place in America for this kind of violence. Everybody must condemn it." He took down his television ads. Barack Obama said, "There's absolutely no place for political violence in our democracy," right? It is worth contrasting that with Donald Trump's reaction when a man attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer in his home, and Trump said, quote, "It's weird things going on in that household. The glass, it seemed, was broken from the inside to the out, so it wasn't a break-in, it was a break-out," playing into various conspiracy theories that were floating around in the Republican Party at that time, right? So it's just important to remember that there is a difference between the way the leaders of the two political parties respond to acts of violence. And it's also extremely important that people reject this line, which is now coming out from Republicans, which is to say that because Democrats were saying they were worried about Trump's as a threat to democracy, that emboldened or is responsible for this shooter, right? So you had J.D. Vance. I mean, gosh, J.D. Vance. I mean, there's so many people who one can look at. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this book, Czeslaw Milosz's book, The Captive Mind, which is an extraordinary book about basically how people's characters are transformed or things are inside their characters are brought out as a society is overtaken by totalitarianism. But I think, you could do a study, a chapter in a book like that on Lindsey Graham, on Marco Rubio, on all of them, but especially on J.D. Vance. I mean, what a horrifying person he's turned out to be. So J.D. Vance says, "Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination." I mean, that's just a complete bald-faced lie. It is true that the central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Trump is an authoritarian fascist who should be stopped, but not at all costs. They want to stop him by defeating him in the election, and they also believe that he should be subject to the rule of law when he commits crimes. There's nothing that President Biden has said or come close to suggesting that he wants to stop Trump at all costs, meaning by shooting him or having people shoot him. It's an utter lie. And yet you see the Republicans repeating this. This is their line, right? House Majority Leader Steve Scalise: "For weeks, Democrat leaders have been fueling ludicrous hysteria that Donald Trump winning re-election would be the end of democracy in America. Clearly, we've seen far-left lunatics act on violent rhetoric in the past. This incendiary rhetoric must stop." Sorry, it is not incendiary rhetoric to say that Donald Trump represents a threat to democracy when he tried to overturn the last election and has said he won't respect the results of this election unless he wins, right? And to suggest that saying that somebody is a threat to democracy is an incitement to violence is so perverse, because it's the whole reason that you need to protect liberal democracy is that liberal democracy puts constraints on the violence that the state can enact. States are violent entities, but liberal democracy, checks and balances, some popular will, those things can be some restraint on the violence of the state. And when you eliminate those or strip those away, as Donald Trump tried to do, and clearly will try to do again, you are actually creating an environment of much greater state violence. So it's just Orwellian to say that you're emboldening violence by trying to stop someone from overthrowing liberal democracy and turn the country into an authoritarian state. And yet that is what the Republicans are saying in this terrible, terrible, frightening moment. I don't know that I can remember another moment in my adult life where I felt things were this bleak. But here we are.